Let me ask you a question. What do you think a god of war would look like as a woman? I'm thinking maybe long, crimson hair, some Greek themes like that of a Greek goddess, maybe a huge broad sword with ancient carvings on it, a fiery look in her eyes, some eyes that pierce you. Maybe someone like Leona from Black Clover. Well, the Genshin devs think that the goddess of war looks like an attention-hungry Instagram model cosplaying a biker. I'm not sure how they came to that conclusion, but they did. It's better not to question the decisions that company makes anymore for your mental health. I genuinely feel sorry for you and send my condolences to those that have actually went through the disaster that was Natlan in Genshin Impact. Especially if you had high expectations like I did after the Fontaine story quest. Farina's arc is definitely one of the best gacha game story quests of all time. So going into Natlan, I definitely had high hopes. But I think that Wuthering Waves players got something pretty good out of it. So I think the Genshin devs pretty much knew the game was falling off anyway, and they were already too busy with trying to rip off Pokemon. So I'm thinking that they gave their script for Natlan to the Wuthering Waves devs. So now we know exactly what Malwika was supposed to look like. Don't worry if you were disappointed by that region that was supposed to have themes of war and a leader that looked like an actual threat, but instead we got themes of a high school dance and excessive power creep, because Wuthering Waves 2.4 looks like they will deliver on what Genshin was supposed to do. So thank you, Hoyoverse, for just about the only good thing you've done in 2025. Wuthering Waves has been on a hot streak of W's. Ever since the fallout of the 2.3 anniversary patch, it looks like it's only good content from here on out. And it's starting to surpass the quality of just a gacha game. The quality of the world building has only increased since the drop of Renacida in 2.0, and it looks like it's about to get a lot better. So today I want to talk about what's looking like the most exciting region yet for Wuthering Waves. I think that Septimont will be exactly what I was expecting out of Natlan. It's close enough to compare and hope for the goddess of war and the war nation that I wanted. Wuthering Waves does a great job of giving us what we need to know to get the general idea of what the next story quest will be like, but we can make some assumptions about what's going to go down in Septimont. First off, I think we can all agree that Septimont has to be one of the best looking regions yet. So let me show you the geography if you haven't seen it yet. This region is inspired by ancient Rome, and we can tell because of a few reasons. First of all, the griffin statue. If you don't know, the griffin statue means the unity between divine power and the earth, the wings being the representation of divine power and the lion being the representation of the earth. The marble architecture and the pillars give it away, as well as these statues you can see close to the door thing or whatever. Those are Roman soldiers right there, and then there's one near this garden area. Now we have my favorite part, which is the Colosseum. I'm not sure what they're calling it, but I love the modern twist they put on this with the rings above the arena. And I'm sorry if you're a Genshin fan, but this really does look better than Genshin's arena. Next we have this rocky area. It kind of reminds me of Leeway. I'll probably throw a picture up that looks exactly like Leeway. Yeah, the more I look at it, it just looks like an Unreal Engine version of Leeway. I'm also really loving the Roman architecture, and I know that Natlan is inspired by Latin America and Colombia, but honestly for a nation of war, if we're being honest, Rome fits a lot better. If I say nation of war, the first thing you're gonna think is Rome, not Latin America. Right here we have Dvalin. It looks like he got soloed by the real Pyro Archon. But yeah, this looks sick. I don't really know what it is though. This right here looks magical. This looks like a AAA game. This doesn't even look like Wuthering Waves. This is magical. I have no words. 10 out of 10. The characters are generally the most important thing in a gacha game, and a character that's caught my eye recently was actually Lupa. I don't think I've talked about her design yet, and I think this is one of the best designed characters ever in Wuthering Waves. The Flag Spear is one of my new favorite weapon types now, and I do have to say Kuro absolutely cooks when it comes to these weapon designs. I get a heavy war general vibe from her. The only thing that kind of throws me off is the tail. I feel like it's kind of random, but regardless of that, she's still a top 5 design for me. Also, her animations are insane as always. The ultimate kind of reminds me of Naruto. And we do have a general idea of what her role is going to be in the story. As of what we know so far for the main story quest in Septimont, there's going to be a tournament called the Great Agon. And this is a tournament that happens every 4 years in that gladiator arena we saw. Maybe similar to the Olympics in real life. If you remember anything from history class, ancient Rome society was a lot different from ours today, because earning prestige back then was definitely cruel in today's standards. The way to make it to the top was your strength in combat. It's looking like Septimont is going to be a lot of the same, because we know she's undefeated in combat. So yes, that means she also beats Malwika. I promise I'm not a Malwika hater, I'm just saying. But earning prestige in combat was the first thing I thought of when I saw the arena in Natlan. and the tournament that they have is similar, but it just came off as goofy to me, and maybe that's because of the way it was presented, but Kachina fighting Mualani specifically gave me no sense of danger. It even seemed like Mualani was trying to let her win like she was Itachi, but she actually sold the bag by doing that because Kachina got cooked in the abyss anyway, and then we had to assemble the Avengers to go save her. Anyways, we also know that Lupa is the face of an energy drink that looks like a strawberry Fanta. That gives more merit to the fact that your value in this society isn't money, it's combat strength. In fact, these people are so independent and hard-headed that they strictly go against the Order's teachings. So I'm definitely excited to find out what Kuro's cooking. So the main story quest for Septimont is already looking 1000% more interesting than Natlan, especially because of the themes fighting for survival, a war in a sense with the Order, as they naturally reject the Order because the people of Septimont believe in independence. Just that information alone is better than Kachina getting lost in a hole underground. And not to mention Capitano, the #1 Fatui Harbinger, by the way, being hyped up for years, mind you, not even really putting up a fight against some girl with a motorcycle, and then basically becoming irrelevant and not even being released as a playable character. And yes, I'm still salty about that. And as for the character lineup, Wuthering Waves 2.4 compared to Natlan, Wuthering Waves has way more interesting looking characters. The Natlan designs is where Genshin really started to lose its identity. Like, I thought Mualani was okay. I thought riding the inflatable shark thing was kind of funny, but that should have told me what the rest of the designs would look like from then on out. I thought while Kanich looks cool, he kind of had like a basic male look to him. And then when you get to Chaska, she kind of just looked like a great value Kulorand. There was also this picture going around when she came out with her hat off and she just looked terrible. Don't get me wrong, if you actually like any of these designs, there's nothing wrong with that, because I personally do like all of these designs a good bit, and maybe that is because they're so far away from what Genshin characters usually look like. I will say Skirk does look incredible. Granted, she has been in the story for a minute, but she's one of the best designs in Genshin Impact. I'm sure we can all agree on that. The thing is, with Natlan being a nation of war, all of these characters kind of have a goofy vibe to them, and if you like it, that's cool, but that's not what I was expecting from what they were hyping up about Natlan. They could have released one super badass fighter and I would have been okay with that. And on the other hand, Wuwa has released some of the most interesting looking characters yet, especially with the Japanese schoolgirl and Jianshin's brother. Not to mention Frolova, who's been terrorizing us for ages, and not being hyped up for 4 years just to make your appearance and shit the bed. And Scar better go off this arc, he better not become Capitano. In Wuthering Waves next patch, we're even getting character skins. I think they could have done more with Changli and Carlotta here, but if you're a Gooner, this Carlotta skin is a W. Now the price point could be an issue, I do agree, but you do have to understand that these in-game models are usually high quality, and the animations have glaring differences from what they usually are. So yeah, I'm not gonna sit here and glaze Wuthering Waves the entire video. I do think the prices for the skins are too high, but they can be justified if you want to buy Carlotta's skin because you're a simp. I only think Chang Li's skin is worth it if you're like her biggest fan, you have a body pillow of her and you'll never switch up on her as long as you live. If she's your #1 main and you know that you'll always main her until the end of time, then yeah, I guess the skin is worth it, but it's gonna be a no from me. I also think the top up prices are too high in general, but that's for every single gacha game, so that's for a different day. Great angle right there. But I always wished Genshin would add more than one skin every 2 years for their limited 5 stars. It feels like such a missed opportunity, especially since there's almost like 100 characters in the game at this point. Instead, Genshin wants to innovate by literally baiting their audience into thinking they got artifact loadouts, but instead they just got some artifact suggestion generator. If you play Genshin, you have to realize these people literally think you're stupid. That's why they have Paimon retell you the story.
And then, because Hoya wanted it really high,
that's why they added a character check endgame mode that takes 0 skill. That's why instead of adding actual artifact loadouts, they added some inconvenient garbage.
Wait, is it already in the game? This is old? Why does it look exactly like what we just saw?
And finally, I want to talk about the TCG. I don't want to make an entirely different video about it, but I think the TCG could be interesting. I'm assuming most people aren't interested because they have PTSD from Genshin, and I don't blame you for that, because that shit was pretty atrocious. But from what I can see from Wuthering Waves right now, the TCG is going to be a lot more in-depth. But not only that, there's actually going to be a visual representation of you fighting the echoes, which I think is very smart, because the devs knew if people were just looking at PNGs moving and and touching each other that people weren't going to play it. I really hope this is PvP because co-op makes everything better, and I'm a big believer in co-op in video games. So with the regions looking visually stunning and taking more inspiration from Rome, one of the more interesting stories we have yet, I expect to see lots more fighting and action than we've had in the other stories so far. The characters looking really interesting and having lots of symbolism, especially with our new God of War, and the TCG looking fairly interesting, I guess. I hope you're excited for what Natlan should have been. Thank you for watching this far. If you have, we're almost at 1,000 subscribers in less than 7 days. I'm glad you're all enjoying the videos. I'm constantly working on new ones for y'all. Have a good day. Peace.